It recorded.
All right, looks like we got everybody back. Did you guys enjoy that? Get something out of it? Meet some new people? Thumbs up? Awesome. All right, we will go ahead and get this show on the road. I want to remind you to put your information into the chat, your name, your phone number, your email address, and where you're from. And after you do that, at the end of the evening, you can actually go to that chat and you can download. You click on the little file there, which is like the fourth icon from the left, I think. Now I'm going to actually test this. Actually, that's an upload. So maybe you can copy. Yeah, I should be able to copy paste to download that chat. So please put your information in there, and it's your virtual business card, and that's how you can share it with everybody. All right, let's see if I can get this thing moving along here. And that was our networking. We are done with that. I always like to start the meeting in memory of Gene Carino. Gene was the founder of the RL Academy and the RL National Association, and he introduced thousands of people to the model of the residential style assisted living. His motto was do good and do well. Because of Gene, I'm here, and I'm sure there's a few other people that are here because of his efforts. And his daughter Isabel is carrying the torch very well, and they're doing a great job over there at the RL Academy. Encourage everybody to visit our website. It's DAALR.com, and that is where we keep the recordings of these. But if you're in Colorado, particularly, you want to go to this link, this page right here, the helpful links. And on this is the chapter 7 and chapter 2. And these are the links that they go directly to the rules and regulations in Colorado. So you need to know these like the back of your hand if you operate here in Colorado. I don't have them for other states. Sorry about that. But moving on, we've got the Denver ALR Facebook page. So I hope everybody can join that. And I'm going to drop this link into the chat so that you guys can get to it easily. So please join our Facebook page there. And next, we have the meetup group, and I'm going to drop that link in as well. And we appreciate those who actually sign up on Meetup. It gives us an idea of who's showing up. Not as important for online meetings, but it's always good to know. And we do use that as a communication lever. So if you want to get the emails, then please go ahead and sign up there. We always announce our groups on that. Some of you may have come in from our other email campaign, so that should work as well. We just want to make sure that we have your contact information so that we can share it with you. And next, let's see here. Am I going the right direction? our sponsors. So let's start with Assisted Living Mansion. And actually, Brett's going to be speaking next month. But Brett at Chuckavis has put on a really nice program for a high-end 16-bed model. And also on his website, it's a great collection of training videos, although I think that's not a true statement anymore. But if you go to assistedlivingmansion.com, you can check out what he's doing. He's got a really neat property down in Texas that he's been doing 4 16-bed properties on. I went and visited it last year. It was pretty impressive. And when they say mansion, it really is a mansion. And it's really nice that that model is available. They do some coaching there. So go ahead and check it out. Again, assistedlivingmansion.com. Our newest sponsor is Leslie Overo, and she's with Wise Balance Accounting. And most accountants stay at arm's length and they process transactions and file taxes and send invoices. And that's not enough. Leslie works exclusively with senior living and residential care operators, helping them turn chaotic finances into predictable, scalable systems. Actually, had a meeting with Leslie today, and she really does a great job. So please check out wisebalanceaccounting.com. And we always like to point out the RAL National Association. You can get a free membership there if you go to ralna.com. And it is the largest free association for RAL businesses. All those resources are available to you for free. Corporations and sponsors are lining up to partner with them so they can reach the 30,000 plus homeowners, giving exclusive pricing on products and services that you homes or the homes are already paying for. So ralna.com, I think I have a link in the chat for that already. And also we have to mention the RAL Academy. And I did mention this a little bit. If you're new to assisted living, if you've never done this before, this is your basic training. I highly recommend you go through this course. So if you're just getting started, you want to go to ralacademy.com. They have an online course, they've got a live course, they've got mentoring. So check them out. And next we have assisted living marketing. We actually have Peter Brissett, one of our sponsors here. Peter, would you like to chat a little bit about your company?
Absolutely. I'm Peter Brissett, digital marketing dude. I run assisted living marketing. We've been working with small residential assisted living communities for 16 or so years now. Um, and we love what you guys do. I'll never be a caregiver or, do the kind of work that you guys do, but I'm happy to help support that. And I love that people can find really great care in residential assisted living. And so I get to be a little tiny piece of that. But we can help out with branding, logo design, um, website, and all the SEO and all the AEO and AI stuff I literally am just reading another document. We've been making some improvements on our infrastructure to help out with AI searches and all that good stuff. So whatever you need along that, happy to chat.
Some Peter. Thanks. And next is Senior Care Administrative Coaching, and this is Janet Cornell. Janet is here tonight. I'm not sure if she's with us right now. She said she had to step away for a moment. So, Janet, if you're here, would you want to jump in? And I'm assuming she's not. So, but anyway, Janet provides consulting, and this is here in Colorado, 4-year assisted living home. Also, she can provide the 40-hour administrative training, staff training, and employee file compliance and compliant documents. But most of all, what I really like that she does is mock surveys. So here in Colorado, if you get hit with, if they ding you for an immediate jeopardy, that can be a pretty big fine. Even some of the other stuff, the ticky-tack stuff can cost you money in fines. Colorado's kind of tough about that. And having Janet go through your house and do a mock survey will help you identify where those problems are so that you can correct them before the state comes through. And that's what really costs you money is when the state comes through. So go to SCAC janet.com. And
Thank
there
you
it
very
is.
much. You're doing a great job.
All right. You want to add to it?
You know what? I didn't hear all of it, but thank you. I am teaching the administrators class starting next week on Tuesday. It is the 40-hour class to get your certificate for the state of Colorado. So if anybody wants to sign up for that, it's not too late. And other than that, I think you covered a lot for me there.
All right. Good deal. All right. Next is Colorado Recon. This is Colorado's community for real estate entrepreneurs. And it's a deal-driven real estate investor network, and members get Colorado-specific tools and training, expert support, vetted referrals, and discount local events across the Front Range to help investors close more deals. Also, while we're talking about investor groups, I want to announce, and I should have made a slide for this, but on August 19th, we are launching an investor group called Grid Denver. And Grid is part of a nationwide set of investors, over 30,000 investors nationwide. And us here at ABW are the Denver chapter of Grid Denver. And we will have a meeting live in person at our office conference room, which is a pretty good sized conference room, seats about 40 people, and that will be on August 19th. So you can go to Meetup and look for Grid Denver on Meetup, and that will have the details. Our meeting this month is Basic Investor 101. So if you're interested in real estate investing, I hope you join us at that meeting. And moving on to sponsors, this is, I shouldn't call them just Colorado's assisted living lawyers because they do work outside of Colorado, but PinkowskiLaw.com, they help developers and operators of assisted living and group homes locate and establish their facilities so they can focus on the business of caring for people. They will act as your advocate or work with your local council if you're in Colorado to encourage compliance with Fair Housing Act provisions. They've been involved with this assisted living space as long as I have, which is over 10 years. And I highly recommend if you have any kind of issue with an HOA, and they've got some really good information on their blog. So PinkowskiLaw.com. And I'll chat a little bit about our group. We have a few groups. One of them is a Better Way Funding. We do the lease options for group homes, and that information is at rilleaseoptions.com, and that is in the chat right now. And then next, I'll chat a little bit about our ABW senior investments. And if you are looking to just be a passive investor in assisted living, these two deals are fully subscribed, but we actually have two more deals coming up. One of them is under LOI, and the other one is going to PSA, purchase and sale agreement. So if you're interested, then reach out to me at, you can reach me at that email, vern@abwsi.com, or myself, and we can chat a little bit about what that looks like. And Grand Avenue Business Brokers, and I'll just kind of get through this real quick. We specialize in assisted living. And our current activity, I haven't really updated this very well. So the only thing we have going right now is a deal in Colorado Springs. And of course, the other two deals that I mentioned that are going on, one's in Texas. Oh, both of those are in Texas, actually. So one's a 60 bed in Texas, and then the other one is 36 beds, so 72 bed total in Texas that we have going on. And next,
Hey, Vern, what is the word fully subscribed mean? I don't know what that means.
That means that so we're taking on investors, but we can only take on so much money. And once that money pool is full, then we are fully subscribed. So if
Okay.
we're not fully subscribed, we can bring on more investors. And for the two I just mentioned, we have room for investors.
Okay.
And speaking of Jana, would you like to speak for Cala?
Yep. I'm the president of Colorado Assisted Living Association. We primarily represent the facilities that are 40 beds and under, although we do have several places that have 105, 110 beds now. So we're growing. We have some exciting things going on. We have 4 different events in October or in August 4th. We have Steve Cox from the State Health Department speaking. If you're a member of Caller, you're invited to that because it is a member only. He's going to give us the updates on what's going on at the State Health Department, Chapter 2 updates, direct workforce, all that stuff. Then on August 11th, we have the Colorado Labor Board talking. We have some new training guidelines put out by the Labor Board called Direct Workforce Training and Know Your Rights. So that's the 11th. I think it's the 20th. We'll be in Fort Collins for an in-person workshop. I'm doing the administrator training, so we got a lot going on in August. It's all memberships renewed in July, so if you're not a member, I would encourage you to do that. We have several different categories, but we are doing all kinds of great things. We are gearing up. This group might be interested. We are seriously contemplating if we can get rid of FGI for smaller group homes in Colorado. So we're looking at that. Weighing our option, putting some feelers out there. I talked to some architects that thought FGI is a total waste of time for smaller facilities. So we're gaining steam on that. So lots of work when you file a bill, though, guys. Lots of work. You have to be at the Capitol. I was at the Capitol one year like 8 times. Each time it's like 4 or 5 hours. So it is a bunch of work for us to do, but we have been successful. Cala has filed 3 bills and we won 3 bills and they went into law. So we are batting 3 for 3. So we are good. We want to make it 4 for 4.
We should do a GoFundMe page for that.
You know what? I did find out we can do that. Yeah, I was a little bit worried about because the cost of filing that bill is about $20,000. So I didn't know if a 501c6 could do that, and I did snoop that out. We can. We just have to fairly disclose that it's not a tax deductible donation, and you have to disclose that right up front. So I did snoop that out. So we are going to move forward with that just so we can defer the cost of that.
Yeah, we need to pull together and get that done.
Yeah, we do. That would really be a feather in our cap. We have been fighting FGI for, I don't know, since 2018, since the beginning. Yep. Michelle Pinkowski's all fired up. She's ready to start helping us out. So it'll be exciting if we can get it done.
That would be great. Yeah.
It would be. Vern's on our team too. Vern's going to be a strong advocate.
Yeah, we'll be blasting that out too.
Yeah.
When you get that page ready, let me know.
Yep. We'll get that out there.
All right. Well, thanks, Janet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and look at that, 7:10, and I am right on time. I can't believe it. Amazing. A perfect storm and understanding severe losses. So Blake Crawford has been our insurance guy at ABW for several years. We've got, I think, 45 buildings right now that they handle, and they've been great. We've tried some other people, and I'm so glad we switched over to Blake. And Blake, I appreciate you presenting for us tonight. I will let you take control.
Yeah, thanks, Vern. I appreciate that. You guys have been great to work with as well. You're a fun group, and never a dull moment with ABW folks. So how is the easiest way to share? Or
you just start sharing and it will take over.
I tried to look for the share my screen and I didn't see it.
There should be like a black bar down below that is like in your control panel. It could be on your other screen as well.
And I didn't see it. I got it now.
And then when you hit share, you can either share a screen or you can share a window.
Love it. Let me see how this works here. Make sure I got it right. Window. Let's see how this works. I'm sure you're going to see probably this screen. And now if I do this, let me know if you guys see the presentation.
We do.
Yep, we see the storm, the perfect storm.
All right, love it. Perfect. Technologically somewhat literate, I guess. So we'll get started. And again, I'm Blake Crawford. So I'm with Gallagher Insurance. Used to be Assured Partners, and we were acquired by Gallagher. So now we're even larger. We're the second largest insurance broker in the world. We insure in, I think, most continents and all 50 states here. I've got clients throughout the country as well. I insure a few hundred homes across the country. So do this every day, and it's a lovely industry to be in. I'm actually on the board as well with Janet for the Colorado Assisted Living Association. I live here in Denver. So lots of fun and a fun group of folks. Let me see, it's not letting me go to the next slide. There we go. All right, I'll just do that. So again, agenda, just went through my introduction, but we'll go through some claims data. And this is data, because I know folks aren't just here in Colorado, they're across the country. So I pulled data from across the country, go through some claims examples, and based off of those claims examples, some risk mitigation tactics to help alleviate the likelihood of those happening, and then kind of also what is the majority of the reason for those causes, and then just final tips and takeaways from there. So I thought this is pretty interesting. I know we've got some folks on the East Coast, the West Coast, and Central, but there really are only 8 states that account for majority of the claims across the country. So as you can see, the problematic places are California, Florida are the biggest, and those are for a number of reasons. Just one, the amount of litigations that happen in the litigious states, but also just the abundance of senior living operators and communities there. So as you can see, there's some pretty crazy stats as far as the number of cases that come out of California. It says 9% of cases come from California, but 15% of the total dollars paid are from there as well. So a pretty significant chunk of the claims are coming from there. From that, these are the claims counts. And then from the dollar perspective and what we call severity, California is still on that list as the 26%. And then down, Florida is 12, but still, as far as the large loss, those 2 states are at the top from the perspective of where the large losses are happening. So that's losses above, I believe it's 500,000 what they used here. And this data is coming from a couple of the large carriers within the space. So Liberty, Ironshore, and then MedPro and CNA are the carriers that pulled this data. And that's what I've been utilizing. Also interesting to see that the top severity allegations. So resident abuse comes in at number 1 with the average claim costing $384,000. Second is failure to move a resident to a higher level of care. So, being in assisted living, making sure even though the person or resident might have been there for a significant amount of time and it's their place, if they do age out and their acuity level isn't something that you can really take care of, it is important to make sure they're in the right place where they can be taken care of to the level that they need to be. Failure to follow a physician's orders is number 3, followed by medication error 4, and then elopement at 5. And I think, based off of the claims I see with my clients, these are the typical ones that you see, and also the ones you really see in the news. Unfortunately, one of the popular things to see is people like to put on the news incidents that happen in senior living homes. It's just unfortunate, but these are type of things that you will see there because it draws attention, which we don't like attention. So again, at the end, mitigation is a very important piece.
Blake, can you go back to that slide?
Sure.
On that, like resident abuse, 384,000. Is that the average claim?
Claim, correct. So yeah.
Wow.
And that's not include. I don't believe that's including ALAE. So there's indemnity and then ALAE. So indemnity is the actual payout amount, and ALAE is the cost of defending a claim. So attorney's fees, things like that.
So that's just that's not including the attorney fees?
No, and we'll get into some the numbers too that are just the indemnity piece, but I believe this is just indemnity as well. So the ALAE is not as much typically as the indemnity, but it still probably adds 50 to 100,000, depending on how long it's drawn out. If it ever goes to actual litigation to court, or if it's just settled out of court. So of course, when you have a claim, it's always better to have it settled before you get to the courts, because it just continues to draw out and the ALAE will continue to rise. So a lot of times, carriers will try to settle the case before it gets to court. Things important to have, like arbitration agreements with your residents, to make sure that if something does happen, there's a path to an agreement prior to it escalating as well. So.
And does that go in the resident agreement then?
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And anybody else, any questions that come along, feel free to speak up. And then, so as far as the top, we kind of went into this in the one before, but so this is just within kind of over the last, 3 years. So the reason it says 2024, this is the latest release we received this year from our carrier partners from 2026, but typically it takes 2 years for a claim to be closed. So when a claim opens up, there's a time frame from it to go through the system and go through everything to finally get closed. And so that's why these dates are from 2024 and 2021. So you'll see pretty much across the board an increase in the number of closed claims, and it's not terrible. No, I mean, I would say it's pretty even. I mean, there's improper care excluding falls, so that's escalated quite a bit. 4% over the last 3 years, or from that 3-year period. Everything else has stayed pretty close, and nothing too much of a variation. But you can kind of see from the number of claims that come in where they're falling from a resident fall, from and again, these are the number of closed claims from top 10 allegations. So 40% of claims are from a resident fall, 23% or so are from pressure injury. And these are through both, assisted living and nursing homes, not just assisted living. This is from both.
So these resident fall claims, are these basically saying that it's the facility's fault?
Yeah. And I have some claims examples about resident falls too. And, there's a myriad of reasons why a resident could fall. And I've seen majority of the reasons why they escalate to the high number, as far as a settlement amount is just not checking up on them. They the videos will show, or the logs will show that the resident was not checked in on properly, and they went hours without somebody stopping by to making sure they're okay. So they might have fallen at some point and become injured and just laid there for hours without any kind of supervision or any kind of support. So that's been a big issue of why these things do escalate. But resident falls happen a lot, especially within assisted living. Again, it goes back to that escalation of level of care. So if they become where they're not ambulatory and they really are becoming more and more prone to falls, they need to become into a better place where they can be taken care of. And there's a lot of new technology too going into some of the bigger locations from a technology perspective that will record residents as they're walking through the hallways, and will see early signs of falls. And so if a resident is declining in their ability to be ambulatory or to get around, it'll pick up on that and show through AI, that early onset signs to say, hey, so-and-so is becoming a potential problem and needs to be reassessed and things like that. So based off of, 20% difference almost from the next closest one, pressure injury, resident fall is a huge, and from what claims I see too, I insure mostly assisted living. It's definitely the predominant type of injury.
So, and it's
Yeah, plus Vern, the state is all over places for not having a fall prevention program.
Yep.
And so if you don't have that, the state's going to fine you. And they're actually, in some instances, calling that an IJ because you are putting people at risk. Not that any of us really believe we can prevent falls, but they want you to have a fall prevention program. Evaluate somebody's decline, move them on if they're a huge, if they fall 6 times in a month, you're probably looking at a higher level of care for that person, which is kind of sad in some respects. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Blake, I'm gathering from what you're saying, it's not necessarily the fall, but the inaction after they fall that is the biggest problem.
Yeah, and as you can see on the next side over here, the total incurred by top allegations. So this is the average cost of the claim or the settlement, the payout, the indemnity piece. The higher the amount, it's because of that negligence or gross negligence. So a lot of times from a resident fall, it's not as, it's not that the facility or community really had poor care, and it just might have been an unfortunate circumstance of the fall. But when you do get these higher claims here from the resident fall, it does usually involve some kind of negligence or gross negligence if it gets to that level.
Wow. Okay.
So
Good
you can see from the resident fall, that's number one from number of claims, but from the severity, it's towards the bottom of the top 10. And again, back to the almost not willful acts, but the intentional acts, the resident abuse is where you get the highest level of settlement or highest total there, based off of it's an incident where the person knowingly and willingly abused the resident, not on accident typically, or things like that. So those willful acts are what are typically causing the higher settlement, or the severity of the result. Medication error, failure to follow a physician's orders, failure to move a resident to a higher level of care. So just not even moving them, can cause a pretty substantial level of claim. And as you see, one of the big things too here is all but 1, 2, 3 from over that 3-year span have all increased in the average settlement. So just from resident abuse, you see a almost 80 or just over an $80,000 increase in the average claim. So definitely not trending in the right direction. But again, it goes to a number of reasons. Just there's a lot more spotlight on communities, and folks, need to focus on the mitigation efforts and really put, like Janet said, policies and procedures are huge. Following them, training them for your caregivers, making sure they're following it is very important.
So at one point, you and I had a conversation about the average cost per day per resident.
Oh man,
and
yeah.
That was, I think, it was probably a year, maybe a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the figure that we came up with was about $1.35 a day. Since then, would you think there's changes to that? And so that's question one. Question two is, if you have a claim, how much does that change?
Yeah, and it really depends from a claim perspective of the of your size of community. If you have a very small community, one claim can completely change the amount you're paying. We're still on an average from assisted living about $500 per bed. I've actually seen that go down quite a bit, but I would say on average it's about $500 just for the insurance piece from a liability perspective.
Per bed?
Yeah, per bed. So that doesn't include like occupancy. That's just per bed. So if you have, 8 beds, you're paying roughly $4,000 in insurance for just the liability piece.
Okay, so annually $500.
Yeah, give or take. But I've seen some carriers coming in. Like there's been, for small assisted living, carriers change like overnight. It's insane to see who comes in and out, just because it is such a volatile industry. There's not too many claims that are, from a liability perspective, 10, $20,000 are typically, $100,000 plus. So if you're only paying, $4,000 or $5,000 a year, one claim can completely, destroy that loss ratio for eternity of the community. But I definitely have, from my clients, I insure quite a few that just have one location, and luckily I don't see hardly ever a lot of claims just from like the 1-2 locations folks. It's mostly either my large 100+ bed locations or my operators who have 10, 20, 30 communities that might have an incident here or there. But even those folks, I've got a couple clients who have a few hundred beds that will have a claim every couple of years, and they're still able to find insurance, still able to get things that relatively inexpensive. So it just kind of depends. One, the reason for the incident, and being able to tell your story and tell, and it not being something that was that willful act of they intentionally harmed a resident or intentionally did something. So that's when it really gets sticky.
And does that price adjust the bigger the facility?
Yeah, it does. Not, I wouldn't say like tremendously, but I've even seen, I had a client who just had one location, and we were almost half of that. So we were about $250 a bed. And that was a brand new carrier into the marketplace. So yeah, as the larger locations, you'll typically see a little bit lower price per bed. But also it really depends, back to those maps, where the location is. If it's in a pretty litigious state or county, good luck finding. If you're looking at Cook County in Chicago, you're at $1,000 per bed at least. So you're easily double in other places. West Virginia is another very litigious area. So if you're in a place where that just happens, then it's gonna shoot up quite a bit.
All right. So our facilities in Texas are probably going to cost us a little more than that.
Yeah, Texas is a pretty litigious state as well. I think if we go back to this, so it's 2% of the total, 2% of the total large claim, or so that's case volume, come from out of Texas. So they're in the top 10.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hindsight's 2020, but
It's not. But that's 2% of 100. So it's still pretty low. But when you look at it from across all 50 states,
right,
it's up there.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah. Any other questions about this piece here? Keep on rolling. And so we go from allegations by setting. So we're comparing assisted living to skilled nursing. And this is what kind of surprised me, or we'll get into it too, but from the skilled nursing and assisted living, the number of claims you'll see is much higher in skilled nursing, but the amount of the claims is much higher in assisted living. But from the allegations, you see a pretty consistent, resident fall is still number one in both. You see, from assisted living, over 50% of the claims you're seeing is from resident falls, improper care, abuse, pressure injury, and elopement. Alternatively, in skilled nursing, resident fall, pressure injury, improper care, failure to monitor, and then resident abuse. So pretty similar, but slightly different. Here's where I was really surprised. So you'll see, so skilled nursing is the dark blue, is that first number here. And then assisted living is the lighter blue, but you'll see almost double the claims in most instances, or most years, from skilled nursing to assisted living. So you have about half the number of claims in assisted living as you do in skilled nursing. But if you look at the severity, the average indemnity payment is more, pretty much in every single year. It got close in 2020. That's COVID. But other than that, everything else is pretty much assisted living is paying out higher per claim. So I asked myself why. And so here are the key factors of why assisted living facilities have a higher average indemnity payment than skilled nursing. Again, this is taken from CNA, which I believe is still the number one carrier within senior living as far as the liability goes. So higher severity of certain claims. So you'll see, so when this is certain claims, so when you compare the two, you'll see a higher severity within the assisted living piece and the financial impact that goes into that. So for example, in Liberty Mutual Iron Shore show, failure to treat or prevent ulcers, pressure ulcers, resulted in 30 claims in assisted living versus 331 in skilled nursing. So it happens a lot more in skilled nursing, but the severity of it is more severe within assisted living. Secondly, emotional and perception-driven litigation. Typically, assisted living, you'll have a little bit more close care with your residents. So you'll have that level of unmet expectations for what they would assume they're getting from assisted living. So you'll have a little bit better communication or family interaction within assisted living, and so that typically will result in a higher payment or higher claim based off of their interest or their want to rectify a situation that might go poorly for a loved one. If they have a stronger relationship with that family member, they're going to want to be paid out for that. So it's you'll see more visibility to families, and it's that more personal touch. So then again, social inflation and legal system pressure. So you're seeing a lot of focus on the both assisted living and skilled nursing, but more focus on the assisted living. Documentation risk management, you'll see a little bit less just based off of the number of regulations higher within skilled nursing. So a lot of times you'll see inadequate documentation within assisted living because there aren't as many regulations as skilled nursing. So you might have a little bit more lax rule or procedures, assessments, things like that aren't as closely monitored, which will result in more negligence there. And then 5 case examples of outlier impacts. So just larger verdicts for bed source elopements and wrongful death in assisted living can skew the average upward. It's a more higher impact from that arena. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So we'll dig into some claim examples, unless somebody has some questions around the data there. I think you'll see some consistencies and some commonalities between the examples of what is causing a lot of these cases and those high payouts. So we'll start with resident falls, and this first one, the dark blue, is from a skilled nursing, and from the light blue is a assisted living. So in a skilled nursing, resident with severe cognitive defects and poor balance was found to have fallen. Her bed was subsequently placed in the lower position. So they noticed that was a symptom or an issue. So they moved the bed lower to help with those falls and put mats on the floor. 2 additional falls happened, both resulting in some dural hematomas. Prompted her family to install cameras in her room just to monitor her, see what was happening, see what was going on. She was noted to only be a moderate risk for falls. A final fall resulted in severe head injury and cervical spine fractures. She was unable to recover and died. Subsequent review of the video showed lack of every 2-hour checks, and at one point a gap of 9 hours during which she was not assessed for the need to clean, dry clothing, the typical, routine assessments. So the community, the nursing facility did what they could initially to lower the bed, put some mats down, some preventative care measures there. But ultimately, it was the inability to continually check, and those 2-hour checks to make sure that they were all right. So, that resulted in a $825,000 payout from the indemnity. So it probably would have been over $1 million if you pull in ALAE from the assisted living example. A new resident opted for an assisted living facility, despite being a approving facility. Figured if they were approved for independent, they're a pretty great candidate to be at their community and really would thrive. He did not require assistance for daily activities. Shortly thereafter, he participated in a social activity and was not seen again for 2 hours. He was found to have fallen in his room and had been unable to get up from the floor. His mental status was altered, and diagnostic testing revealed subdural hematoma. His condition did not improve, and he passed away a few days later. Facility notes reflects no observation interaction with the resident after he left the social activity. So again, that consistent monitoring, I would assume these were probably both in larger communities. One thing that that small residential assisted living really has over a lot of these big communities is that resident supervision. Is they don't have the opportunities to get far away from staff and caregivers because it's all a much smaller location. So that's a definite plus in a lot of these of being able to continually monitor and check on the residents and make sure they're okay. Any questions about these two examples? It throws you off a little bit. I just talked about how the assisted living is a higher claim than skilled nursing, but this one is almost like double. But you can tell it definitely shows, there's a 9-hour gap that they were not assessed, and having the cameras in the room showing that was the smoking gun for this. So I think those two things there, definitely resulted in that higher payout.
Well, look at the common thread. The common thread is lack of oversight and follow-up from staff. I mean, if you say you're doing every 2-hour bed checks, then you are. And It's up to the management team to make sure those are being done. And if it's not documented, the 2-hour bed check wasn't done. And so when you go to present your case and you have no documentation that you checked on the person every 2 hours, then it looks like you didn't.
Yeah, or you have video evidence showing that you obviously did not check on them every 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well.
That's sad. That's sad for the families, and it's sad for the facility that they've got staff that are not doing what they're hired to do. So that, yeah. And then the next one, the guy is pretty independent, but hello, he's in assisted living. So you still have to provide protective oversight for somebody that's in assisted living, regardless of their care needs. Yeah.
Yep.
In 2 days? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That was pretty alarming.
That is. Wow.
The next couple of examples are around elopement. So in the skilled nursing, a resident admitted for hospice care was noted to have a history of wandering and episodes of confusion. He exited the building through the rehabilitation unit door, but was quickly found and brought back inside. Later the same night, during rounds, an aide saw the resident's bathroom light was on and assumed he was in there, but did not check. Several hours later, the resident was noted to be missing and was found in the courtyard outside of the rehabilitation unit and died due to hypothermia. Does anybody here see like the glaring issue with what happened? I think there's one thing that really stuck out to me as being the big issue.
Lack of oversight again on staff. How come they didn't know if the guy's a wandering risk, he needs to be secured where he can't get out?
Yeah. With the aide, when they saw the resident's bathroom light was on, they assumed he was in there. So they didn't check. They didn't confirm he was in there. They assumed he was in there because the light was on, and he wasn't, and he was outside. And Colorado, we had a pretty severe case down in the Springs a handful of years ago where a resident got out in the middle of winter and passed away sitting on a bench outside from hypothermia and froze to death. So it's very common, especially in a lot of if you're in a colder state, if somebody gets outside in the middle of the night dead of winter, it's not long before they, hypothermia can set in, and
Well,
not,
and it's happened down in Grand Junction. It happened for heat in July. Some lady was
yeah,
on the patio
same
and
thing,
died.
exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of these individuals with their cognitive issues or different reasons, they don't assess heat and cold as normal folks would, so they don't realize they're freezing to death or burning to death.
Well, and here's what the problem is that places keep people that are wandering risks
Mhm.
because they don't want to lose the revenue.
Yep.
Or they don't have a secured unit. And so they
Yep.
can't just come into their secured unit. They don't have one. So it
Yep.
means they have to discharge the resident. Here's something that's upside down. Twice I've seen the marketing director be in charge of admissions and discharge. And the marketing director gets a commission.
They're for sales.
Is
Yeah,
that like stupid? Yeah. Is that like stupid? It's like, no, the marketing department is not allowed to, because they get paid on occupancy of the building.
yeah.
That is just a huge problem.
I could see that coming up in court, or at settlement.
Oh,
If
huge
someone's
conflict
talking
of
about
interest.
who's in
Yeah,
charge
yeah.
of admissions, and it's the marketing person who's in charge of sales and getting revenue in.
And so she's admitting him and she's deciding who can get discharged.
Yeah.
I'm like,
What's the real
no,
focus there? Is it the resident care, or is it money in the pocket?
her bonus,
Yeah.
her occupancy bonus. Yeah. Yeah.
Not great. So, with assisted living, a resident was admitted to a second floor unit in a secure memory unit. He was confused and often awake at night. He was found in the building's electrical room one evening after staff lost sight of him. Wandering behaviors escalated after that and began to display agitation and disruptive behaviors. After not being able to locate him for dinner one evening, staff discovered that he had fallen out of a second-story window. He sustained several fractures and was subsequently transferred to a rehabilitation facility. Of note, the resident's care plan reflected no increase in surveillance and assessment after the initial wandering episode. So I think Jada can talk about this, because I know she's talked about it before, but the escalation of when you see a resident, start to have signs of issues, changing their care plan, changing this to reflect that need for extra supervision, to making sure they're okay. If they're having issues under a certain care plan, that's not just going to fix itself. That care plan needs to be adjusted to making sure that that is right for that resident.
Well, and you need to go right back to the resident agreement and state in there that if the resident requires a higher level of care, the family will provide one-on-one supervision or one-on-one care until we can find a higher level of care, because sometimes it's not immediate that a bed's open in a higher level of care, but who's footing the bill for one-on-one care? So that's part of your resident lease agreement, that you cover those things. Or if the resident just really does need more care, you need to have that in your resident agreement of who's paying for that increased care needs. Yeah.
Yep. I'm surprised by the indemnity pay of only $101,000 for this. I mean, there's some pretty substantial and egregious issues here. I mean, when you can see that the person has already had has been a wandering risk and has confusion and often awake at night, when there might be some lower staffing hours, not being able to keep an eye on them, and then showing that he fell out of a second story window. I mean, that's
How the heck
severe.
is that second floor window open? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Who the
that's
heck's
Good question.
that's
Yeah.
that. I don't see how it stayed at 100,000 like that. That community
That's
got lucky
low.
there.
I mean, that looks low, doesn't it to you?
I would have thought it would be,
Yeah.
closer to that 500,000. So they probably had some good attorneys there, or there's a number of reasons that could go into that, but yeah, I'm surprised by that payout.
Again, it's just, you're kind of scary presenting a black eye for our industry. Here's all of our black eyes here. There was another one that got held responsible. They admitted a lady that had always said she was going to commit suicide. She moved into an assisted living. She committed suicide. The facility was held accountable for not preventing her suicide because they're straddled with protective oversight on her. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those red flags in residents are there for a reason, and that's if there's big issues and you're not equipped to take those on, or wanting to deal with that. I mean, it can really hurt you. And these are, every industry, if it's, senior living, if it's construction, if it's manufacturing, there's always, pretty severe examples. My totally off subject, but my wife works for a sugar manufacturer, and they've had some pretty crazy deaths at their factories from, people getting run over by their trucks, people falling into, they manufacture beets into sugar and sugar beet piles. So like no matter what industry you're in, there's going to be issues. There's going to be oversight. There's going to be problems and cases and payouts. So it's just a matter of checks and balances and making sure you're doing what's right and you're in it for the right reasons and you're focusing on what needs to be focused on and not just trying to make money off of it. So I think that's when you have the big issues and it's when you're focusing on the wrong things.
Well, and it's a balance because you can't operate in assisted living in the red, so you have to have a balance between making money and the risks that you're willing to endure. Because $100,000 fine for most assisted livings is not that great, but if it's 250,000 for a smaller one, is going to put them out of business.
Yeah, and I mean these are all covered by insurance, but your premiums are going to go up too if you have these claims, or if you're consistently having claims, then the ability to find insurance is going to be pretty much impossible. But again, like I said earlier, a lot of my small assisted living residential communities don't have a ton of claims just because it's less likely to have a lot of issues just because you're in a smaller place. It's easier to see your residents and things like that. It's when you get into the bigger places that, you see more frequency and things like that. Not saying that the small ones don't have issues, but definitely, much, much less than the larger ones. The last claim examples we'll talk about is assault. As you can see, these are a little bit higher, especially within this assisted living one, $1 million settlement. I don't know if that's a settlement or if it went to litigation, but I'd probably assume litigation went to court if it was that. So for the senior living, or first the skilled nursing, two residents whose rooms were across the hall from each other had a weeks-long argument over the volume of their TVs. The argument escalated to the point where one resident pushed the other to the floor, resulting in a cervical spine fracture. After surgery, the injured resident developed pneumonia and died. Subsequent investigation revealed the facility staff were aware of the argument and of escalating aggressive behaviors, but had failed to address the situation. So in this circumstance, it's not even, the community or their employees that caused the incident, but it's the resident on resident assault that caused this. But it was the oversight of not responding to the already occurring incidents and then creating a plan to combat or to rectify that situation. So they let it go on. It escalated and got to the point of somebody passing away. So, if you see issues, address those issues, rectify those issues, mitigate those issues, so they don't escalate to something more. But I haven't seen a ton of assault within my, I have had a few, but, I would say it's, from what I've seen, I don't know if I'd say it's more employee or caregiver to resident versus resident to resident. Because, a lot of times, just like anybody's neighbor to neighbor, you can get agitated with somebody, you might not see eye to eye on certain things, and, you just might not get along. So being able to keep a, cohesive and very easygoing environment isn't always tough with, people just don't see eye to eye on things. So making sure you keep it as docile and as, unaggressive as possible, and de-escalating is very, very important. Within the assisted living, a resident who was with a known history of attacking other residents aggressively pushed a female resident to the floor. Facility video recorded staff members reacting inappropriately, carrying her to her room, not notifying the unit manager, failing to remove the other violent resident. Later, the resident was transported to the hospital where she was diagnosed with a hip fracture requiring surgical repair. her condition deteriorated, and she never returned to her baseline functionality. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues here, with the staff not responding correctly, and facility videos are sometimes a blessing and sometimes a curse. It can show exactly what happens, either good, bad, or ugly. It's either what's going to put the nail in the coffin or what's going to be the saving grace. So it is tough. A lot of my clients have them, a lot don't. So it's just, it depends. But then, also how that community responded, carrying her to a room, not notifying the unit manager, failing to remove the other violent resident. And, if a resident has a history of attacking other residents aggressively, it probably isn't the best place for them. They probably need to be moved somewhere else. 'Cause that's just, asking for consistent issues. So I'd assume if they had a known history in that community of attacking other residents and nothing was done to separate or to release them to another location or something, that's why this thing hit $1 million.
Or it's an inappropriate admission. It could be an inappropriate admission where they had red flags and they ignored them. Our problem in Colorado is you could send that individual for aggressive behavior. You could send them to the ER, and the ER sends them right back to you. So you got to really put up your guns and say, we're not taking him back. He's violent. But yep. Was it an inappropriate admission in the beginning?
Yeah. So it's either that readmission or that initial admission of, if you see that history, don't admit them. That's going to be.
Or don't take them back. Don't readmit. Yeah. Don't admit them and don't readmit them. Don't make the same mistake.
Yeah. Twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no.
Well, let's spend some time going through some risk mitigation strategies and how to, alleviate these things from happening and making sure you all are doing what's right. So, first, I want to talk about, before we get into just the mitigation piece, but the most common contributing factor details. So, these are what result in a lot of the claims and the higher claims too. So, clinical judgment, it's the inadequate resident assessments, what we just talked about. So, inadequate resident assessments create missed opportunities for care, allowing conditions to worsen and or psychological changes to go unnoticed. So, making sure in those initial assessments that you look for things that, what's going to make them really succeed within your community and what's going to make them not succeed. And if they're not going to succeed and it's not going to be beneficial for them or the other residents, don't admit them. And administrative failure to follow policies, procedures, inadequate staffing levels, training, education, a lot of what we talked about. The non-adherence to the policies is commonly identified in fall and pressure ulcer related cases. So they're not following the proper procedures there. They often involve inadequate assessments, failure to follow existing care plans, insufficient staff training, managerial oversight, and staffing levels issues are commonly associated with failure to follow policies. There's just a lot of this is just sometimes laziness. It's not going through and doing the work for the checks and balances and making sure that you're following everything by the book. And it's from all levels, from the administrator, managers, down to the care staff and caregivers. So making sure that these are followed and people are following the right policies, protocols is very, very important. Communication, suboptimal communication between providers, staff related to changes in resident conditions. So, we talked about this a lot, but there's a lot of different communication issues that can arise, but inadequate assessments, breakdowns in communication across resident care, teams creating missed opportunities for care, suboptimal communication with residents, families noted at almost the same percentage of case volume. Of note, communication factor details, including failures to read medical records, plan of care updates, failures to escalate concerns, and resident care involving or evolving signs, symptoms, and are noted more often in cases with indemnity payments above $500,000. So, if there's You'll see a lot of just oversight from, if there's care plans in place and they're just not following it, the rest of the staff isn't following it or taking the time to read those correctly. And, that communication is lacking. So, that's up to sometimes the higher managerial staff to making sure those folks are communicating adequately and there aren't those breakdowns.
I see it all the time. When I do
Yeah.
mock surveys at places, Blake, I see all the time. I said, where's your documentation that the staff read the care plan? Well, they read it. So where is it? Where is it? Did they initial plan?
Yeah.
Or did they write a summary that they read the care plan? I mean, where's the documentation that they read the care plan? Because the care plans take a long time to do if you're the administrator doing it, or the clinical staff. But then when the staff don't take time to read them, then why did you fill it out?
Yeah, that's a good point. Janet, what would you say from making sure a employee is reading the care plan, so a caregiver is reading the care plan? Because I could see, if it's just, hey, I checked off, I initialed it, that's very easy. But if it's something like you mentioned, a summary, if you have to provide a brief summary of the care plan to show that you read it and you retained it and you understand what's going on versus just, a check.
Well, and the state wants to see that. The state will come in and say, how much do you know about Fred here? And they'll go, I don't know. I never read his care plan. They'll just tell the state that. And then Steve Cox is really nailing places on, that is putting that resident in harm's way. That's not, it might put him in harm's way. That is putting the resident in harm's way when nobody read his care plan. Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's tough too, because we always, there's a lot of conversations about, the state and the issues and the combativeness between, trying to do what's right and making sure these communities can thrive. But, it's up to them, the state, to make sure that these communities are run correctly. And so having things like that are important, and having those checks and balances. And those surveys are, sometimes really, really tough, but I think ultimately they are meant to make sure that those communities are run the way, what makes me mad is when I hear of, issues with things that aren't really involving in resident care, where they get, docked for and things like that. So,
well, I think the state health department and the industry is all on the same page. We all want safe care for residents.
Yeah, exactly.
How we see that through different lenses, because we see it from a provider standpoint, they see it from regulatory, but it's also, we have a couple of sites training administrators that are not safe to do. They're an online site. You can rip through those in 6 hours and get your certificate. That is not safe. I'm helping a person now that we did that. She goes, how would I have known all this? I said, well, through your administrator class, you're supposed to, but they didn't, Yeah,
well, mine was online and I didn't listen. I was watching Netflix while I was supposed to go through it. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Just take the questions, and if you didn't answer the question right, go back and redo it.
Yeah. So, lots of factors there that result in some pretty significant issues. So.
Well, in some places pay for their policies and procedures. There's a company out there writing one size fits all policy and procedure, and it's pages and pages, and the facility never reads it. And it actually has a little box. Place your own information here. They never do, and they get it out of a box. They never pay attention to their own policies and procedures. So it's ridiculous, Yeah.
All right, now we're gonna go through some risk mitigation strategies specifically for a couple of the things, and I'm not gonna go through everyone in detail, we'll talk through some of them and we can discuss. I'm not just gonna read verbatim though. But, for the first one, focus on resident falls. Again, these things happen. Falls are gonna be very, prevalent within senior living communities, no matter if it's assisted living or skilled nursing. So it's critical to have that systematic process and assessment of intervention and monitoring the residents. So, if they are starting to show signs of being more of a fall risk, then change that care plan. Maybe they need to be escalated to a more higher level of care. So continue to focus on those assessments and be cognizant and of your residents, and be watchful and focus on them. Conduct daily assessments of residents. So ensure all staff is licensed and unlicensed are fully trained to see how to conduct the assessments. Develop resident care plans based on those daily assessments. Again, back to the communication, verbal and written communication of the teams regarding the residents' fall risk status. If it worsens, Where are they currently at? Communication is huge. That managerial oversight here ensures staff's in compliance with fall prevention measures. Educate all staff, including environmental services, maintenance, dietary, everybody, all fall hazards. Somebody could just be walking through, and it's your cook that notices them fall. So if they're going to be the first ones to intervene and be there to support that resident, and they need to know how to. I know Jan talked about it earlier, but having that fall prevention and those procedures in place and making sure your staff knows it well. That's all staff. Conduct monthly physical assessments, investigate all fall events thoroughly. We talk a lot about this with our clients. It's the root cause. It's those near misses. It's not just, hey, this person did fall, but this person almost fell. So if they almost fell, the next one could be an actual fall. So thoroughly investigate those events. Root cause analysis. What caused that? A lot of times those falls happen not just because of the individual, maybe their level of ability to walk, and they're being ambulatory deteriorating, but it might be because of hazards. So like this is the rugs, handrails that are broken, things that might be a nuisance to somebody trying to walk or that has trouble walking, that might be an issue. So being cognizant of that.
And I see places that don't actually look at the end of the month. At the end of the month, you should be collecting all your fall reports and say, does anybody show a pattern of falling? And then you have to define what is a pattern of falling. Well, it's not once. Is it two? I always say it's three. A pattern of falling is 3 times in a month. And then you say, okay, this person has a pattern of falling. He's fallen 3 times this month. Why is it? Do you have medication change? Is he falling over his shoes? Does he have cognition level issues? He's gotten dehydrated. He's fallen 3 times. Well, then if Fred shows up on the fall report the next month for a pattern of falling, you need to do something. But many places I ask, show me who is a pattern of falling. One place, the guy fell 8 times in a month and they didn't call him a pattern of falling. I'm like, are you kidding me? He fell 8 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious at that point.
Yeah.
And some of the things, I mean, I've had some clients who have had issues, even like with the tread on their slippers or on their shoes that aren't there. So, they're much more easier to slide and slip on slick surfaces, or, they're not putting up signs if a floor is wet or there's a spill, something like that. I mean, super easy things that should be very, obvious to address aren't. So, check those things. Whatever could be a hazard, will be a hazard. So make sure to notice that and to fix it. With elopement, so this is with elopement and assaults. For elopement, frequent. They're infrequent, but however, when they do happen, they're pretty severe, and they could be very severe. So half of them result in serious injuries or death. In every case, inadequate monitoring by staff was identified as critical issues, and were staff failures to follow policies related to safety, security, monitoring. So with elopement, folks that have elopement issues a lot of times aren't cognitively all there, and they might have that inability to realize, where they are, what they're doing, things like that. So it can be a very big issue because they don't always know where they're at. They're not always aware and conscious of the surroundings and things like that. So that's why these things can be, again, it's not as frequent, but they are very severe frequently when they do occur. So review prospective residents' histories and wandering events, take it seriously, along with anxiety disorders, preoccupation with past events and relocation. So, if somebody is prone to trying to revisit a place or a memory, things like that, they could develop that frequently wandering and things like that. So,
Blake, a lot of it never happened before, but when you dig into the staff and you talk to them, he goes, oh, he couldn't find his way back from lunch one day. He took the wrong elevator and he ended up over the independent wing. I mean, there's telltale signs sometimes that places choose to ignore until it's
Yeah.
just an issue, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, oh, he just got lost. It's like, well, they've been here for 4
Yeah,
years.
somebody just doesn't wake up one day and elope. There was telltale signs along the way that they ignored, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely that piece of that
Yeah.
ignoring it or that ignorance to focus on it. And so, examine the facility's physical environment to determine whether adequate safety and security measures are in place to prevent residents from exiting the building. And so, you know, if it's easy to get out and to go far away, you know, make it, you know, if it's not a secure facility, then you can't, you know, lock doors and things like that. But, you know, make it a little more difficult to walk out to major streets where they could get injured or escape through a window being unlocked on the second story, like we heard earlier. So things like that for the physical environment to make sure there's adequate safety and security measures. And again, we talked about this a lot, staff training and resident elopement plans. So policies, procedures, make sure they're there, make sure they're followed. Periodic elopement drills are great. You know, go through the scenarios, especially if things happen, you know, if you real life cases, if you have something that might happen, an incident, you know, use that as a you know, continually use that as a plan or as a drill to say, this happened, so let's practice it. Let's, if something were to happen again, how do we respond? You know, those are very, very important.
Like, do you have any companies that you're insuring the entire business? Like some of our bigger partners, they have independent, assisted, and memory care.
Yeah.
Is
So
one company
ACRCs,
allowed to insure all of those?
yeah. So like continuing care retirement communities have like all levels of care.
Yeah.
So independent, and I mean, those are great places too, because, you know, if it's a lot of times it's hard, as you all know, as you know, owners and operators, that if you have a resident that is really flourishing in your community and it's their home and they start to level out of the ability to be there, and, you know, it's not the right place for them, if they're in independent living, really need to go to that assisted living, then you know, it's a nice way to kind of graduate to that next place and not have to go to a completely new.
Well, and I've talked to some owners before that say, no, she's an independent. We don't have to worry about her. I said, I think you're still liable if she wanders. She's going out to the pond at 9:30 at night without her shoes on.
Oh,
They said,
yeah.
well, she's. I think at the end of the day, the family could still sue you for not watching their mom as she wandered out to the pond at 8:30.
Yeah, you can sue for anything. It's just ability to have that case that to support yourself. So yeah, if they are on the independent side and they've been there, but they are showing signs of it, then there goes back to the communication of talking to that family and saying, hey, we've noticed your loved one is doing X, Y, Z. We think they should be, you know, moved on to the next assisted living based off of these signs. You know, it's going to be the for their safety, for those around them too. And so having that communication with the family, not going unnoticed, not going unspoken about, you know, very important. Similarly with assaults, it's not as frequently noted, but again, very severe. Most reflective of facilities staff failing to take preventative measures to mitigate the risk of assault. So, you know, if you see things, if you see residents that are verbally abusive, aggressive, breaking boundaries, infractions, threatening, you know, just because, oh, well, they're just all talk. They're all bark, no bite. That's not going to be that way forever. You know, that's a sign that, you know, things can escalate. Things can get more severe. Take those seriously, address them, you know, change that care plan.
Well, and in Colorado, you have to have a safety plan for the other people that live in your home if you've got an aggressive person there. So where was the safety plan to protect the other, you know, 15 residents from the guy that's aggressive? Because that's in regs.
Yeah. This next one's kind of crazy because you don't know how often you'll see it, but or I've seen it too. But with prospective residents, you know, checking their current and past, you know, behavior diagnosis with those that involve, you know, aggressive, sexual, or violent encounters. Look at their resident history and other communities. Take that seriously. And if they're, you know, have never been in a home before, but have had a history of violence, you know, it's probably, you know, a good chance that it's going to continue into the next place. So take those considerations really at heart when you're doing those assessments.
Well, and the sad thing about that, Blake, though, some families lie to you and say, oh, yeah, my dad's just a peach. You know, he's just so nice. But I have on my pre-admissions assessment that the family signs a statement that says, I have disclosed all the information
Yep.
needed to plan for Fred's care. If I have withheld any information,
Yep.
then I may be, he may be discharged, and we may be. So I sew it up tight on the assessment and make the family sign, because most people won't sign something. They'll go, oh, you know what? Actually, I forgot. He did regularly push my mom and down
Yeah.
the stairs one time.
If
Yeah.
they have to sign it, that's putting their name down there. So like in court, in that piece, it's going to come
Yep.
up. It's like, you signed this.
Yep.
You lied to us.
Yeah. Because
So,
families, unfortunately, they lie because they're desperate for a place to live, and their
Yep.
dad's kind of a mess. Yeah.
I mean, and then I don't know how often folks do it, but in those, check for FBI background checks and resident criminal acts checks and national sex offender checks, things like that are publicly, available. Do your research. If they're there.
Or domestic violence. You see that a lot. A husband that
Yep.
has dementia, he
Yeah.
has a record of domestic violence because
Yep.
he has hit his wife. Well, if he hits his wife, he's going to hit the other people in your facility. Yeah.
It's not usually isolated.
Mhm.
So, and then, continually residents with escalating behaviors need to look at transferring to higher level of cares. And then just kind of the key points and the tying it all back together. But we talked a lot about it, but that thorough pre-assessments or pre-admission assessments, investigations of all the residents, potential residents, getting it at that point where, if there's some pretty big red flags, some pretty big issues that could happen, then they are probably going to happen. So those pre-admission assessments are very, very, very important. And you should not have your marketing or salesperson who gets paid off of putting that person in your community in charge of that. I had never heard that before, and that is just mind blowing to me.
2 times I've run into it when I do temporary management of companies now, and 2 of my clients that I did temporary management, I said, well, we're changing that today. I'm in charge of it. Discharge.
Yeah, you just asking for issues.
Yeah.
So wrapping up, I think we've talked a lot, and Janet and Vern, thanks for your conversation too. I think that's some great points and some great dialogue, some great conversation. There's some reoccurring themes, communication, red flags, being cognizant of your residents, making sure that they're in the right spot and having their care as one of your top priorities is all very, very important. So, it's senior living is a lovely, lovely thing. These folks and these loved ones need good places to be, and it's an industry that's not going anywhere. It's continuing to grow. There's a lot of opportunity to do really, really well because a lot of folks are in it for the right reasons for the care of those folks. So just make sure you focus on that, and it's an industry that people are still making really good money, and because they're in it for the right reasons. So you can do it. You can do it really well. And you can do really well at it too. So I know some of this is and it's a perfect storm. It's doom and gloom, but it's things to be cognizant and aware of like, all right, here's where the industry is at. Here's what the issues are. So let's make sure we don't have those issues. Here's what we need to address. Here's how we need to address it. Here's what we're seeing. So, hopefully you all have some takeaways and some things that you learned. Feel free. Here's my cell phone and my email address. So feel free to reach out to me. I left a link to our Gallagher page as well. But I love our company and what we do. There's a lot of insurance brokers out there who just place the insurance, but we've got a clinical and legal team that help our clients through it all. So there's questions along with our clinical staff that are, previous directors of nursing and previous administrators and paralegals and attorneys from the industry that, are there to support our team. So I really do love what we do to give back and not just, place insurance, but really focus on helping our clients alleviate those things and mitigate those risks. So like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I hope you guys learned something and found it informative and beneficial.
Good
Thank
stuff,
you.
Blake. Thank
That's
you
great.
very much.
Yeah.
Of course.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right. So we will just wrap up the evening with haves and wants. If anybody has haves or wants, now's your opportunity to express them to the group. Do we have any takers?
Cali always has a want to have more members, so we'll put that out there. Anybody can join Cali. You don't have to be a Colorado member. You can join the Colorado Assisted Living. We do some awesome trainings. You know, we do one a month, but we do some awesome stuff too.
All right, great.
Janet, I will be contacting you next week. So just remember putting a face to the name.
Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Are you here in Denver?
I am.
Oh, okay. Okay. I love working with, I love doing mock surveys. It's like a scavenger hunt. It's so fun.
I'm sure you enjoy it. I look forward to speaking to you next week.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer.
That's good.
All right. Any other haves or wants from the group? Going once. Going twice. All right. Well, thanks everybody for attending tonight. I hope you got something out of it. Reminder to download the chat or copy paste the chat so that you have the contact information of the people you met tonight. And we will reconvene next month on the
It's the 25th, I think.
Is it? Okay. Thanks, Al. The last Wednesday of next month, whatever date that falls
It's the
on.
26th. I'm sorry, 26th.
All right.
Hey, I'm
So-
sorry. I need this job.
Okay. We'll see
Have
you
a
all
great
later.
evening.
Thank you all. Good night.
Bye. Bye.
That was good. That was
It
a
was.
good.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm amazed at the number of crazy stuff that goes on out there. I mean, you just think we all, but we don't see it from an insurance side of things either. That's scary.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting, especially the
Could be
falls.
prevented. I mean, it all could have been prevented. It's just, do the damn assessment like you're supposed to. Don't take people that you shouldn't. Train your staff, communicate well, and walk around as the administrator, figure out what's going on,
Yeah.
That's sad, but
Good stuff.
yep. All right. Thanks, friend.
You bet, Janet. Take care.